Dana here. Welcome to Sew Learn Create. I'm glad you joined us today. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so be sure you click that subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when we upload a new video. So, today's project is a hand sewing project. It's quick and simple, and it's kind of small, but it's a fun one to make. It's a padded heart that you can put a pin back on. Or you could put a string and just make it an ornament to hang on your Christmas tree or just somewhere in your home. So let's get started. For today's project, the padded heart, you'll need a few supplies. You'll need some kind of marking tool, either a pencil. I'm using the white pencil because I'm working on black fabric and it's easier to see when I trace my pattern. You'll need embroidery floss. You'll need some kind of embellishment. I'm using a button and I have a variety to choose from here. If you're going to make it into a pen, you'll need a pen back. And then you'll need some clips, regular sewing pins, and then you'll also need an embroidery needle. And if you notice, the embroidery needle has a larger eye that will take all of the floss at one time. I will put the pattern for the pen back in the description box below. You'll also need a little bit of polyfill, but you could also use cotton balls and just kind of shred them a little bit if you don't have polyfill. So here's what we're going to do to get started. When you're choosing your fabrics, you're going to want to choose something that's got a small print to it. So these three would work really well because they have a smaller print, because your heart is not real big. This fabric would not work as well because the print is a lot more spaced out. So today I think I'm going to use this kind of leopard print for my pen back, my pen, and then you're also going to need some felt, which will be your backing. So you're going to take your pattern, and you always want to trace your pattern on the back side of your fabric. And just trace it with a pencil. And remember, the pattern will be in the description box below. And then you're going to need one cut of felt. When I'm doing my felt, I try to put it on one edge, and that makes it just a little easier to cut out. And then, like I say, I'm using this white chalk marker because it's hard to see a pencil mark on the black. All right, I'm going to cut those out and then we'll come back. Now I have my two pieces cut out, one of my fabric and one of my felt. Now I'm going to use my embroidery floss. And embroidery floss comes in what they call a skein. And I'm going to do about 18 inches here. And it comes in 6 strands. To go all the way around my pen back, or my pen, to stitch it together, I'm going to use all 6 strands. So that's why you need an embroidery needle with that wider eye. So we're going to thread our needle using all 6 strands. This is probably the trickiest part of this whole project. It's getting all 6 of those strands into your needle. There we go. And then I'm going to tie a knot at the other end. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch our pin back to our backing if we're making a pin. So I want to turn to where my pin opens at the bottom, put it in the center, and then I'm just going to stitch that on. So I'm going to come up from the bottom, you want to pull your thread all the way up, and that keeps it from getting tangled in both directions. So when I go down, I'm going to pull it all the way so that my thread doesn't get tangled. And I'm going to do one on one side in the hole. This pin back has 2 holes. Some of them have 3 or 4 depending on the length. So I've gone on one side and then the other side. And then I'm going to come over here to this hole and do the same thing. Alright, and that will secure our pin back to our felt. Now the temptation would be to not tie this off, but to just put your fabric and start stitching. But it's best if you will go ahead and tie that off and do it as 2 separate pieces. So I'm going to flip it over. I like to take just a little stitch when I'm tying a knot. Bring it where that loop is. I'm going to feed my needle through the loop and then pull. And I like to do a double knot, so I'm going to do that one more time. Pull my loop, put my needle through the loop, and bring it up. And then I can clip it off. That secures your pin back, and all your stitching is on the inside where it won't be seen. Now we're going to tie a knot again. And we're going to flip it over and we're going to place our pretty fabric on top. And we're going to stitch all the way around using just a running stitch. But we want to leave an opening right here so we can put in our stuffing and make our heart puffy. Oh, I forgot. At this time, before you put them together, you're going to want to add your button embellishment. And this is another area of design that you can use for your pen. You could use a white button or a gray that matched your fabric, or I'm going to use this pink button because I want it to be another pop of color on my pen. So I'm going to want to put that on at this point too. And you want to position your embellishment kind of about 1/2 inch away from your edge, because when you stitch it and you move put your polyfill in and it puffs up, it's going to want to be more towards the center. So I want it about 1/2 inch from my edge. And I kind of like this square button because I think it's kind of cute. And with all the rounded edges, it makes it nice. So I'm going to pull my thread through, feed my button. When your button has 4 holes, you can do either straight stitching to where you go from this one, from the top to the bottom, or you can do what most people do and do an X. I kind of like the X because it's just one more small little flare. So I'm going to go to the opposite corner, come up in that one, making sure I pull my thread all the way up each time I'm stitching. And now I have my button secure. Whoops. There we go. Okay. And once again, I'm going to tie that off just so that everything is nice and neat. And I don't get it to, if you don't tie it off, then when you're stitching your running stitch, sometimes it will have a tendency to pucker on you or gather up because its thread is somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to cut it off. Now we're ready to put our 2 pieces together. Lay my heart down, my felt, put my fabric on top. And then, like I say, we want to leave just a small opening. It doesn't have to be very big. It can be about the size of the width of your finger. So I'm going to start right here And I want my knot to be on the inside, so I'm just going to bring my needle up through my leopard fabric. So see, it's not coming through the back, it's just through this one top layer. That puts my knot on the inside of my pin. And then I'm going to do a running stitch. I'm using the pink thread as one more design element to add a little bit more color, but you could do a black or a gray thread that matched more the color of your fabric. When you're doing a running stitch with embroidery, you just want to leave a little space between each stitch. And if you were having trouble keeping your fabrics lined up, you could use a pen just right through the middle, and that'll keep everything from sliding on you. Mine's starting to shift a little, so I think I'm going to add that pin. You want to stitch just about 1/8 of an inch away from your edge. And when you add the polyfill and make this puffy, then that gives you this little edge out here like a flange kind of. So I'm going to finish stitching all the way around. I'm going to stop about right there, and then I'll show you the next step. Now I've stitched all the way around the outside edge, and I've left just a small opening right here to put in my polyfill. Now one thing before I stuff it is I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to check. And as you can see, my fabric slightly shifted on me, so you can see just a little more of the fabric above that felt. And all I'm going to do there is I'm just going to trim it. That's the nice thing about this project, is it's really great for beginners because it's very forgiving. When you finish though, don't tie off your thread when you left this opening, because after we stuff it, then we're just going to finish it and then we'll tie it off. So just kind of push your needle to the side, and now you're going to take your polyfill and stuff your heart. So you open it up a little bit, and you're going to want to work with tiny pieces, otherwise they won't fit in this little opening you left. You're just going to put some stuffing in, and you can determine if you want your heart really puffy, like I made this one. I think the one I'm making today, we're going to make not quite as full. It doesn't take much. And like I say, you can use polyfill, or if you don't have that at home, this is such a small project, just use some cotton balls. If you're going to use cotton balls, you're going to want to just shred them apart a little bit before you stuff them in. And I'm going to use my chopstick to kind of just work that polyfill in to the corners. Stuff it a little more. Working it in. Use my chopstick and just kind of smooth it out. And then I'm going to tuck it in really tight right here on the edge where I'm going to finish stitching. And then when I'm done, I'm going to work that back out to the edge. So I kind of like that. So then I'm going to take my needle and I'm just going to finish stitching along this opening that I left. Last couple of stitches. Now I'm back to my first stitch, so I'm going to take my last stitch here to finish my running. My thread knot's poking out a little bit, so I'm going to just tuck that in. There we go. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to tie my knot. And again, I like to take a tiny stitch, make my loop, put my needle back through my loop, pull it, and then I take one more time. And that ties a double knot, which is really secure. And then I'm going to clip it off. And now our puffy heart pin is done. And you can take and just kind of swish that or squish that polyfill and fill in that one spot where you tucked it nice and tight. And our pin is complete. If you wanted to make this into a hanging heart, then once you finished going all the way around, you would come back with your embroidery floss and you would just make a loop right here at the top and give it a hanger. So our project is complete. I hope you liked today's project, the padded heart. And remember to click that subscribe button and help us reach 1,000 subscribers or more. So, see you in the next one.